Okay, so this is going to be a short lesson this week, but you're going to walk away with a whole bunch of new ideas that you can implement into your playing right away. And we're going to be looking at triads and harmonies and how you can add those to your lead playing. It'll really spice up your lead and make it sound a little more sophisticated, and it's pretty easy to do once you can visualize them and see where they are. And so we're going to connect everything back to basic chord shapes to make that easy. So I'm going to take everything that I played in the intro, break it all down note for note in this video. However, if you'd like to download the tab PDF file that you can print off and have that as a reference guide, and also get access to the on-screen tab viewer, which has the tab and the video on the screen at the same time with no talking. It's just an interactive file. You can slow down playback and loop sections and all that. You can get those extra materials for this lesson by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for ML122. Okay, so we're going to be playing this in the key of A, but you can transpose everything we're going to do and play it in any key. And I'll kind of be giving examples of that as we get into this, because we're just really going to connect it back to chord shapes. So I'm looking at, this is how I'm starting it. I'm going to be starting here using my A chord, using this E shape here. That's where we bar on the 5th fret. These 3 fingers make up the E shape. And the first thing that I played was this. It's kind of an Elmore James lick. That's what I was going for. And Elmore James was a slide player, but I was trying to sort of emulate that slide sound that you hear, where you hear those triplets. So what I'm doing then is I'm taking this bar chord and I'm just playing the top 3 strings. But I don't have to make the full chord. I just need to make this little triad here. That's where we bar two strings here on the 5th fret, and then middle finger goes down on the 6th fret, 3rd string. And I'm sliding into it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's kind of the sound of the Elmore James slide. And now that you see how that's played, you could do this now anytime you're playing in any key. So if you're playing a blues in G, you know how to do that. You just need to find your G bar chord, basically, using the E shape. You can also just reference the note on your high E string here. That's my A note here, so therefore, there's my chord. So, that's the first thing. And then I went, use my pinky there to come up to the 7th fret, 2nd string, to do that little embellishment, just to give it just sort of a rhythmic thing. So I played it with downstrokes with the right hand. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 2, 3. Here's the embellishment. And then back to that, that A triad. So all together. Now watch this. We go down into the A shuffle after that. That's kind of the response. So think of this as the call and this is the response. So it came down to that. Now when I'm playing that, I'm really just playing strings 5 and 4. My open 5th string, which is my A note, and then I've got the 2nd fret on the 4th string. And I'm just doing that shuffle that, you know, we've done lots of times. I'm sure you've done this before in the blues. And I think I came up like that when I hit it. So all I'm doing there is 2nd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret on that 4th string. And notice that everything that I've done so far has just been downstrokes. All right, so we've played our call and response. Now I'm going to go back to the call. I could have went back to the same Elmore James kind of lick, but this time I'm going to play a different A triad. I'm going to come up here and go. It's the same rhythm with the right hand, down, 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 down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. And what I'm playing here is I'm making the shape of my D chord. You can think of your D chord in first position, the first D that you learned to play. If you were to take that and slide it all the way up here so that your ring finger is on the 10th fret second string, playing that note, which is an A, and then make the chord, that's another voicing for an A chord. So you've got this triad and then you've got this one. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go back and forth between these two. I went like this. So I really walked it down. This is what's happening. I'm going from this A triad back to this one, the one we started with. But there's this in-between stage. Watch this. So what I did there was I played my 2 chord. That's like your B minor. In this case, I'm really just using one finger to play it. So I've got a bar there on the 7th fret, strings 1, 2, and 3. Little embellishment off it by hitting the 9th fret first string, and then back to my A. So here's the takeaway. This is how I want you to think about this going forward. Anytime you're using this triad and you're wanting to connect them, you've got this connective chord right here. And it's right halfway, it's right between the two. And you can come up with all kinds of ideas just sort of playing around with this A chord up to the B, and then this A chord. So just kind of get comfortable with going from this A down to this A, like this. So we landed on this A, right? The top part of that E shape. Now watch this. I'm going to walk to my 4 chord, but I'm going to walk down the major scale using triads. Check this out. Now I'm going to show you how to do this so that you can do this anytime you want to go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord in any key. And so all I'm doing is I'm taking this A triad, the one we started with there, and I'm walking that down 2 frets. That'd be like a G triad. Right? So that's your first idea. And then I'm going to come back into my E shape, just into this container. That's how I'm thinking of it. And where I've got these 2 fingers, that's up here on the 7th fret, I'm going to play, that's a minor triad. So that's the same shape as my D7 shape, just to make it, something familiar. But that's what I'm playing, is just strings 4, 3, and 2. And then I'm going to walk that down 2 frets. So really what I did was I played this shape, walked it down 2 frets. Then I played this shape, walked it down 2 frets. But I want you to connect this little walk down to your E shape chord. Now that's my A chord using the E shape, but this walk down is super useful and something I use all the time, especially when going to the 4 chord. And then I go to my D chord using the C shape. Or just you can play my D chord the way we all know it, right? So you can hear that walk down. The notes of the major scale are happening there in those triads. Now another way to think of this F sharp minor triad and this E minor triad is you can think of those as your A6 and A9 chord. So that's a light bulb for somebody. Oh yeah, there's my A6, because if I play the F sharp minor, which is the relative minor of A, if I play it over an A, then I get that 6th sound. I've talked about that in other lessons quite a bit, the 6 to the 9. So when I walked that down, I played each of those twice. I went, and then down here. And so actually that's what I ended up playing, was my open 4th string, and then strings 2 and 3 out of my D chord. But I played it with these 2 fingers. I didn't hit that first string, so that I could do this and just kind of stretch to hit that. So it went like this. So just practice that, and that's really just a walk from my A to my D. Now after that, I came up here and played this. All of this is still over the D part of the song. So here's what I'm thinking about when I play this. I'm thinking about my D chord here, using the A shape. And on strings 4, 3, and 2, and this little bar here, on the 7th fret, I've got my D triad. Now if I look at just strings 2 and 3, I've got a really cool little harmony, and I've talked about this in quite a few videos, but this is a harmonized third. And what I love about this is part of my D chord using the G shape or using the A shape, depending on how you look at it. They both share this same triad, so you can look at it either way. But this, when I walk up here, strings 2 and 3 are inside my D chord using the E shape. So all I did was I connected this triad to this one by strings 2 and 3 like this. So your takeaway, this is how you want to think about this. In the future, if you like the sound of this little harmony, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with it, just remember where your A chord shape is. So if you wanted to do it in C, for example, if you wanted to play that over a C, here's my C chord using that A shape. There's that triad. Look at strings 2 and 3. There's that little connective run, and it walked me up to my C chord using the E shape. So I hope you're filing that away and you're getting that lick. So let's go back to the key of A, and we're going to walk it down to D. And then we're going to go into this little... So all I did was walked it up from here. When I came up here, I also included that open D string, since you might as well. I wouldn't have to, but it just sort of gives a little more substance, and it's there, so might as well grab it. Walk that down 2 frets, and then down to the 7th fret, and then walk that down 2 frets to get that flat 7 sound. So that kind of bluesed it up a little bit and gave me the sound of a D7. And I'm still hitting those, 2 times each. So now the song would go back to the 1 chord, and this is what I played. You've heard that before, right? That's been done in other things, but actually one example of that would be, I think it's in Malted Milk, which is a Robert Johnson song, but Clapton did that on Unplugged, and I believe he did something, I forget what key he was in, but I remember hearing that. And I like this because it's of the simplicity of it. You get to keep one shape and just repurpose it. So check this out. We're back to our A chord using the E shape, and I'm playing just strings 2 and 3, this harmonized third, right? It's out of this triad, but just strings 2 and 3. And I can also let that E string ring out. I can take that and come up here. This would be like pattern 2 of my minor and pentatonic scale. Right? You play this in the blues a lot. So you know where that is, right? There's this one, and we come up here, and then I can move that up 2 frets, and then back, and then back here. So just remember that run off of your E shape. That's kind of how I think of it. You go skip 2 frets, skip 1 fret, and then just walk it back down. So try that over F, for example. Here's F. And so you could do that now in any key. You just need to find the chord using that E shape. And I kept letting that E string sort of ring out. I honestly just sort of accidentally bumped it, but I thought, it actually works because it's in key. And then back to the response. So then the song goes to the E chord, and I played. Now this is another, basically I'm doing the same thing I did for this A. When I came up here into pattern 2 of my minor pentatonic, now I'm going to be playing over the E chord. There's the E chord using the E shape, right? Here's pattern 2. So there's that same little thing that we did for A, but I just came right to this one, which has that flat 7 in it. And it's just real bluesy, especially when you're playing an E and you can hit this open E string. So again, just downstrokes with the right hand. Slid down to the 2nd fret on the 3rd string. And then watch this. So there's an open 3rd string with a hammer onto the 1st fret, and then you do an upstroke on that E string. So just practice that. And you can hit the full chord if you want. In fact, maybe that's what I did. And that is what I did. I just listened to the playback. So it's... and strum the chord. Then we go to the 4 chord, we go back to the D, and this is what I played. It's a really cool idea, and it comes off of this D chord using your D7 shape. So I started with that, and I played strings 3, 1, 2. I did it in that order, 3, 1, 2, and I slide that up 3 frets, 3, 1, 2, slide it up 3 frets again, slide it up 3 frets again. Now why is that working? Why can I keep that same D7 shape and it just works across? Because actually I'm playing the top part of that diminished 7 chord. So the diminished 7 chord looks like this, right? And you remember with your diminished 7 chords, you can just move them up every 3 frets. You can keep going either direction, and it's just the same notes, they're just kind of reordered. That's one of the magical things about the diminished 7 chord. So when I look at that shape and I look at the top 3 strings, it's like, oh yeah, that's really just that diminished 7. So theoretically, it would work. And then the song goes back to the 1 chord. And after I walked it up, I kept my ring finger and my index finger, and I just slid my ring finger up 1 fret to the 12th fret 1st string. And that would be like my root and my 5th out of my A chord, right? And then watch this. I did just a turnaround there in this position. And if you think about what's going on here, when I do this, I'm playing the top part of my A chord using the A shape. So here's the bottom part. It's kind of hard to get to up here. And here's the top part. But if I look at just strings 1 and 2, it's this, right? So I can take that shape, walk it down again, and then walk it to here, which would be inside of my A chord using the D shape. So you can see we're just really connecting. We have an A triad here, an A triad here, and an A triad up here. And we're using basically like chromatic movements to connect them. And then from here I can go. So I've got all these different things I can do to connect these A chords, and it's going to sound great over the A. Any of what I just did there can represent my A chord. So I walked it down like that, and then the 5 chord, which is my E7. Since I'm here in this neighborhood, I ask myself, where's my nearest E7? So I don't have to jump all the way down here and play one. Oh yeah, I've got an E chord using the A shape. I've got the E chord using the G shape. Oh yeah, there's one right here, you know? So I just use that one. So, and I think I just, as an embellishment, I put my pinky down on that 12th fret 1st string, which is another E note. And now I can loop it. So that gives you a whole bunch of ideas that you can apply to chord shapes. And you know, obviously I'm just doing this over a 1-4-5, but you can take these concepts and apply them to any chords now. So if you want to use some of this stuff in your blues playing, it's a nice addition. So there's nothing wrong with doing your minor pentatonic lead stuff, but then throw in a little Elmore James. You know, why not? You know how to do it, and you don't have to do all 3 strings. You can get creative with this stuff. You could just do strings 1 and 2, Chuck Berry style, or you could do strings 2 and 3. You can take any of those triads and just play 2 of the strings, and you'll still get a cool effect. So play around with that and see what you can come up with. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think of this. I always appreciate those. I'll read through them all. If you've got questions about anything, feel free to leave those as well. All right, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, Click the subscribe button. I put out new lessons like this every Friday, and I've been doing it for like 15 years now, maybe more. I don't know. It's been a lot of years. All right, we'll see you next week for something new.